In this video, I'm going to go over how I like to set my chart up on TradingView. All right, so let's go through this list of indicators here. Just kidding. This is not how I like to set up my chart. This is how a lot of beginners end up doing it, unfortunately. And some of them end up, eventually peeling away one by one, and then they come to the conclusion that really all they ever needed was price, maybe volume, a few moving averages, and that most of these are all just derivative of just price and volume anyways. So this is definitely not it. Let's look at what I actually look at. All right, so before I get into the chart, here's 3 quotes from Market Wizards. We have Larry Height. He's a systematic, trend following trader that's really quant oriented, and he said, when asked in Market Wizards, are there any technical indicators that you have found to be overrated? He said, overbought and oversold indicators. None of them prove out in testing. And then William O'Neill, kind of the grandfather or whatever of like modern day growth stock investing and momentum trading that a lot of us have all kind of built a foundation off of. He said, I rarely pay any attention to overbought and oversold indicators. So, the RSI, the MACD, the stochastic, all those oscillators, nope, didn't use them for his success. And Jason Shapiro, he said, this is a little different, but it kind of is just something I'll get into. There has never been and will never be a perfect indicator. And another market wizard with a completely different style. And so that's so true. So I'm saying that I also want to caveat this with, there are some that find great success using oscillators. For example, Marty Schwartz, he's a legendary trader. I learned a lot from him. He has a great book called Pitbull. Very technical on the momentum side, U.S. investing champion. He predominantly uses price, some moving averages, some volume, and then he'll throw on an oscillator here or there to kind of confirm what he's already seeing. There's Larry Williams is another really successful trader that uses oscillators. Linda Bradford Rashke is another great trader, and she has. I'm not talking bad about it, but a lot of traders that trade like what I teach in the course, it's really just price, volume, and a few maybe moving averages to see areas of interest or kind of just see the trend a little better. All right, so let me delete this, and then let's kind of get into, how I would set up. And this is, this is free, even if you're not a member with any of the, I will show some of the indicators that I have to help, but, so you got volume down here. I'm cherry picking the video for the beginner traders. So a few people asked me to kind of share this, and they even said like, hey, we're beginner traders just getting started. So sometimes you cherry pick some easy setups just to learn. It's like, crawl, walk, run. You don't just throw a beginner trader at, some harder charts and setups. You kind of do cherry pick some of the easier ones just to help teach. All right, so, NVIDIA, we had, look, big move up. What are we making? Higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, another higher high, higher lows. And you have a nice clear trend. You don't even need a moving average to tell you that, right? And then when you move into, later in 2023, what do you see here? You start to see lower lows, or we're not getting really higher lows. We have a lower low here, a lower high, and we're kind of chopping sideways. But then you kind of see it change where we're getting back near highs and we start to tighten up with higher lows, right? You don't need anything to tell you that something's going on. And we had, this big move up. We had strong relative strength. We have big earnings, big sales, and a strong industry group aligned with the bull market theme of AI. We have all these other things that we look at. And as you see this tightening here, right, you see volume drying up. So price and volume, it's all you need. You don't need anything else. And as we look at how much lower the volume is in this last kind of tightening area, and price, look how small the price bars are getting, how tight they're getting. Let me kind of zoom in here. And this is on the daily chart too, okay? And then as we break to highs, right, we finally get through this range. Let's just call it around $50, 50.50. What do we get? Big volume moving in, okay? That's the basics of everything we teach in the course. So do you need any magical indicators to be successful? You know, the trend is showing you it with price. We have higher lows, higher highs. And we looked at all the other, growth fundamentals that kind of find us the stock, right? It isn't just the chart. And we're seeing that price volume kind of analysis. We're seeing supplies drying up, and then we get that the demand comes in, and then price just kind of takes off, okay? Now, what else can we use? We can use some moving averages. So let's not have the chart too close. Let's look at the two that the institutions really look at the most, the 50-day and the 200-day. And so we see with the 200-day, we have a rising 200-day. So we have the long-term trends kind of intact. At this point, we have a flattened, not necessarily declining, but a flattened 50-day. But the 50-day is still above the 200, and price is starting to find support on that 50-day, which is good. And, you know, the 200-day is still rising. So that's excellent. And so these two moving averages are really showing you kind of the general trend. And you'll see that it didn't in here, but there's lots of times NVIDIA didn't really respect the 50-day too much. But there's lots of times, I'll show you other examples where a stock will respect that moving average like the entire way up. All right. And so it doesn't matter why. It's just another indicator to tell you it's higher probabilities it's going to continue to respect that. And so two of the shorter term moving averages, if you're more of a quicker swing trader, Christian Kwalamagi, even Zanger, or just use it to kind of manage the trade once you're in. You maybe then turn these on. And when you break, maybe if you like to sell into weakness, when you break a shorter term moving average, you'll sell some, right? And maybe you'll tighten your stop up. Or I'll show you another indicator which you might use to sell into strength. So moving averages kind of help with that. It'll help manage the trade once you're in on the shorter time frame. And then once you kind of sell some into strength, you can move to these longer to try to stay in the trade longer. Okay? Because you see with the 200-day, once NVIDIA got above this coming out of that bear market, it's just been above the 200-day this whole time up until recently, in 2025. So let's look at the weekly chart. If you're not as short term and you like to trade weekly charts and you hold positions longer, well, it's the same thing. Look at this. This is what we were looking at on the daily chart. The same thing. We start to move sideways. You see that 50-day, which is also the 10-week, kind of move sideways. The 200 still rising, which is similar to the 40-week. And you see prices starting to respect that moving average. You see look at how the weekly bars tighten up so much. You can almost see it better on the weekly chart. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit here. All right, so we're talking about this area. And look at this big, we had low volume. Look how big the volume moves in as it breaks out to new highs, which aligns with a lot of what we talk about in the course, right? Nicholas Darvis talks a lot about stocks moving to new highs, right? William O'Neill does. Minervini does. They all do. And so you can see the same characteristics. And then, you could use this moving average, the 10-week. The second it breaks there, you sell some. Doesn't mean you need to sell your whole position. And then as it moves and sets a new high, you move your stop, right here. Or you trail your stop along that 10-week. Or you have, where you'll sell another half if it breaks here. But you'll remain the rest of your position at the 200-day, now that the 200-day is catching up. So you can do a lot with moving averages, both seeing the health of a trend, seeing if it's finding support. You can use it to help manage the trade once you're in. And look how clean the chart is. You don't need much up. Honestly, even if we remove the moving averages, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, up, lower low. Maybe we should be out because, sure, it went back up, but you didn't know that. This could have easily broke down. I can show you a million charts where it comes back to here. So, all right, and then that's about it. This is basically, and this is all free. You don't need anything else. So now let's go to some of the indicators that I kind of show in the course and some of the indicators I use to kind of help with some other stuff. So hold on. Let's switch to another chart. All right. So here is some of the, I'm going to go over some of the indicators I also show in the course, some additional stuff. So I also want to let you know, I usually go and I set most of my charts on a log chart just because I think in terms of percentages, not, standard arithmetic. So I'm looking at a 10% move is a 10% move. I'm not focused on, dollar values. Now, I'm going to use MU for this example. This is, again, the same moving averages I like to use. I don't know if I already said this. It doesn't really matter if some people like to use the short term. They like to use the 21 EMA. And the EMA just responds a little quicker than the simple moving average. Sure. I don't get picky on what moving averages. Honestly, it's really what the market and the other traders what they are using and what they respect. Just a random moving average isn't going to do much. So a lot of these moving averages I choose to use because it's what the majority of people use. They're like the most used moving averages. So, all right. First, I'm just going to talk about this trade. So this is MU. Let's kind of go to the RS scanner. I got to give a little context before I talk anything because there are guys like Peter Brandt that are just technical traders that do extremely well just using technical analysis and plenty of others. But, I'm a techno fundamentalist, so I'm not just buying. Most of the time, I'm trying to align the growth fundamentals and the chart. Now, I always put priority over price in the chart, though. But, MU, if I had two setups, one that has no fundamentals, but then I have one that does, I'm going with that one. That's just, what I do, and that's what most growth stock investors do. So, that's what put it on my radar, right? Big earnings, big sales, pre-tax margins look great, ROE is good. It's in the semiconductor industry group that's leading the whole bull market up. I've done all my market, I'm looking at a whole different stock. Oh yeah, right here, MU. I have a different chart up. And so all that kind of aligns up. And then when we go to the chart, at the time, we also had, the market gapped up, had the big follow through day. So the market's doing well all before we have set up. We kind of had this big V-shaped recovery, call a cup. We're forming a handle here. Volume's drying up. So see how I'm looking at things that have no indicators. I don't need the moving averages to see this. And this only was a lower low and a big pullback because we had the Iran conflict and the whole market. At the time, the market was breaking the 200-day, entering a stage 4 decline. So, this actually, wasn't that bad on the big scheme of how much MU kind of ran up here. It was actually held up pretty good. And this is where I'm getting I'm seeing all these stocks running up in this period. And there's lots of other stocks that are getting my attention. But what gave me the attention of MU is this tight area. Because now I can manage risk, right? And no indicator is telling me that, but price and volume. The volume's declining in the handle. This is what William O'Neill talks about in his book. Anna Coling, I could be botching her name. She has a great book too that I'll kind of share with everyone. And that's volume price analysis that really helped me kind of go to the next level looking at price and volume. And we're breaking out to new highs on bigger volume, right? In my world, great setup. This is what I live for. Price was also respecting the 10-day, so that's a bonus. So that's kind of layering in the moving averages. And so that's where I'm buying, and I'm placing my stop right below the handle low. Okay? Now, how do we position size? I have an indicator, so I'm just going to show you. If you're a newbie and a beginner, use this thing. So it's the MTS position sizing dashboard. Click the little dots here, go into settings, put your price that you're buying. We're buying at the breakout high, 470. We're breaking the stop right below the handle, let's say around 434, okay? And I want to risk 1% of my account. Let's just say you got a $100,000 account, just to keep it simple. So I'm risking $1,000. So even though the stop is 7.66% from the entry, right? I'm gonna only risk 1% still, and I'm buying 27 shares. And this tool shows you that, right? Now, I would also use the position sizing calculator inside, our tool. Just it's got more functionality and everything right here. But this works for when you're just on TradingView. So, yes, people are asking me how I use these indicators. I use the same indicators that I'm telling you guys and creating for you. So, there you go. And of course, once you're in the position, you sell some into strength. We'll get into all that. So, all right, we did that. We're in the trade. I no longer need to look at that unless I'm selling some, either into strength or into weakness or whatever, or I'm adding to a position. But right now we're not doing that. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to keep this up just so you can kind of see the general. The next thing is, all right, we're in the trade. In this first kind of sideways movement, we're only about one trade. I'm not selling any when I'm up only, one times when I'm risking, right? Because I'm okay to take a lot of small losers, and I'm okay to take a lot of small losses, but when I'm in a trade that's working, I need to have some big winning trades to pay off for those losers. So, this is what a rookie would do, is sell into this, get a little nervous. Nope, I'm holding and I'm fine because I position sized appropriately. Next thing is diving into this MTS momentum dashboard here. You can use the ATR MA extension module. It's basically telling you as you're kind of running up, when you're getting extended from the blue line, the 50-day, and it's using the average true range percentage, okay? It's, again, not every indicator is perfect. There's plenty of times we get these signals and we don't get a pullback. But look, you can look through history. A lot of times it doesn't happen the first one all the time, but then we shortly after get a pullback. So this is just telling you when it's a good idea. Even if you didn't have this or use this, William O'Neill says, maybe when you're up, if we're risking 7-8%, normally when he's up 20 to 30%, 25%, he's up 3 times what he risks. He's looking to sell some, especially when you have, look at these 3, gap up, strong day, gap up, strong. Usually somewhere in here, we're looking to sell some into strength. But say you hold on, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to wait till the first sign of some sort of weakness. You get it here, you sell some, or maybe you're like, man, I'm up so much, I'm just going to wait till, and the 10 days catching up, when it comes to the 10-day or, whatever. So you're using your moving averages. You're using the ATR extension kind of signal to tell you when it's time to sell some in the strength. All right. And then I'm going to remove it because I don't want my chart cluttered, right? Another thing is maybe, you don't want to use a moving average as a trailing stop. You want to use an ATR trailing stop, and that's in here. ATR trailing stop. You can go move in the settings and kind of adjust, what generally what you use. This is kind of set. The default settings are kind of like standard, but you can play around with it whether you want to set, change the settings. And again, this doesn't mean you close out of the position, especially when you're up, but this might be when you sell some into strength or cut back. Maybe you already sold some, you want to cut back a little more. And so that's another indicator kind of tool to kind of help you. Some people like a Donchian. A lot of these are just trend following. Maybe you're not looking to sell any of these short-term things. You're more of a long-term, and so you give it more room, right? More of a standard trend following, going back to like way back, 50s and 60s, they were using Donchian. And if you look back, when price kind of came in here or started to break the lower Donchian, it's a pretty good kind of signal to kind of either close the trade or kind of cut some. You see it here as well. So that's another thing you could do. You can adjust the Donchian kind of settings. What else do we have? Yeah, that's about it that I'm going to go over. I have other stuff like show the RS line. Some of you like to see, but if you're a beginner, I wouldn't worry too much about that right now, just because we have, our relative strength tool. I don't want to clutter your chart up. And so if you're kind of just screening for stocks, I don't really use it because I use our tool because it's way more accurate and I know where the data comes from. And it's, I tried to mirror Market Surge and IBD with looking for earnings, sales, and all that, and screening for all that. But TradingView with what they have, it doesn't give you the data for everything, but this gives you in the right ballpark. So when you're screening stocks, you can see the EPS change, the sales change for each quarter, the pre-tax margins. So I will, glance at the MTS fundamentals. And then I turn it off because I don't want my chart cluttered. All right, so we showed that one. I talked about my moving averages, the position sizing, as you sell some into strength in settings here. I'm not going to go over all this. I have another post you can watch. One of the recent videos is on position sizing, but you can add, your, partials that you sell, your ads, and it'll kind of adjust your risk and whatnot. All right, and other than that, that's it. I mean, I don't use any other indicators. And honestly, even a lot of these, I'm a price and volume type of guy. Like, honestly, look at this MU trade. You got the first little kind of small reaction. It never even comes back down, though, to your entry point. Break to new highs. You get your first real natural reaction here. And then you kind of pull back. You move back to new highs. New high. That's my high or low. I move up. I pull back. New high. That's my high or low. And in the easiest sense to really see trend, it's just that. Higher highs, higher lows. You go back, you're seeing the same thing. You get a breakout back here at the end of end of the summer, fall of, September 2025, and you just have higher lows and higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. Even this big pullback here, it's close to breaking. And then again, it kind of continues with just higher highs, higher lows. All right, so that's all I'm going to talk about. Honestly, if you're looking for a magical indicator, I'm not the guy. Price, volume, a few moving averages. I gave you a few indicators that, help with, staying in a trend or managing a trade. Maybe one that helps you sell into strength. But besides that, price and volume is really all you need, and your chart should look pretty bare. And because this is going to force you to actually understand and see supply and demand in action. Like, I understand if you're a beginner, you're not going to spot this. You're not going to be able to see in real time necessarily. You're going to miss a lot. But the more you look at charts and study the biggest winners in history, you're going to find the setups that meet these characteristics. You're going to find a setup like this with MU. You're going to find, the NVIDIAs. You're going to see the tightening and price action with volume drying up, 2 weeks in a row, really low volume. And then boom, big volume moving in as we break out the new highs. Like, you don't need any other indicator. So let me know if you have any questions. I kind of just winged this video, and sorry for the long-winded rant. It's already 25 minutes. But if you have any questions, let me know.